Hustle culture, hustle mindset is very fashionable and tempting. For me, it's about being excited and energized by the work rather than it feeling like super overwhelming and negative. The single greatest differentiator between people that have grown up in privilege and those that haven't is their lived experience with money. That money noise is basically like that feeling when you have in your mind that like something's really weighing on you. And it's really hard to get rid of that nagging feeling of pressure, stress, or doubt in your mind about whether or not you fit in, whether or not you're going to make it.
Hello and welcome to Coffee and Oysters, the London Business Babe podcast, where we get you together with business tips that actually work and let you know where it's worth tapping your oyster around the city. My name is Frances Odera Matthews. I'm a certified Notion consultant and founder of the Notion Bar, where I get my clients together with personalized productivity systems built in Notion. For my system-loving girlies, never fear, every month I host the Big Notion Academy, where we go through Notion's latest releases and let you ask me, a certified Notion expert, your burning questions. Details in the show notes. Let's just say the September rush is here. If you are a big listener to the podcast, you will have heard me all summer complaining how everything is so quiet. Well, let's just say things are no longer so quiet. I have to do work again. Not enough people talk about this bit of September and how jarring it is to suddenly have a lot of work again. I actually kind of got used to doing not much, but you know what? Nobody wants to work these days, as the great prophetess Kim Kardashian once said. And no, I don't want to work, actually. I think now more than ever, I'm like, how can we make this scalable? How can we build more passive income streams? Because I've been doing this I've been a Notion consultant for nearly 6 years now, and I'm like, is this it? I love what I do, don't get me wrong, it's the work I do is incredibly impactful. I help people save time so they can do not work, and I love that bit about my job, but I've just been doing the same thing for a very long time. So wondering how you switch it up. Stay tuned for how I plan on doing that, but so excited for today's episode and can't wait for you to jump in.
Hey London Business Babe. This community is built for us and by us to ungatekeep your next move and life in the city. If you never want to miss out, subscribe to the Substack where episodes will land straight in your inbox. Plus, every other Monday, you'll get a chance to feature on the show by shouting yourself out in the Manifest Monday email. You never know who's listening. Details in the show notes. Now, grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage and let's get into today's interview.
Hello, and super excited for today's episode. We have Carla Hoppe, who is the founder of Wealthbrite and leading financial education expert. After 15 years in professional services, she left a partner-tracked career at the Big Four to set up Wealthbrite, an award-winning education company. Carla is passionate about financial literacy being the key to unlock both personal and professional success. So excited to have you here. I feel like this has been a long time brewing.
Thanks. I'm really pleased to be here, Frances. Really happy to be on the show and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. How is it's back to school season at the moment? How is that treating you?
I think the nature of the work that we do, which is working with legal organisations, particularly often with their early careers talent, September is a busy month. So in fact, now until December is the classic run through to the end of the year. So it's busy, but busy is good. I feel like you shouldn't really complain from now through to the end of the year. It's just a case of keeping me healthy so that everything runs as expected.
Yes, because there is no business without you.
Well, exactly right. When you're the founder, the buck ultimately stops with you. I think the biggest thing is to keep yourself sane as well as healthy when things are busy. It's tempting to grind yourself into the ground because hustle culture, hustle mindset is very fashionable and tempting. For me, it's about being excited and energized by the work rather than it feeling like super overwhelming and negative.
100%. And sometimes you have to say no to things, and I think that's something I'm definitely getting used to. Is they're like, yeah, I could definitely take that on. I'm like, no, Frances, you are over capacity. We can push that back. Everyone will be fine.
Absolutely.
And so for people unfamiliar with your journey, Tell us about how you landed where you are and what inspired you to start Wealthbrite.
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing to say is that I did not envisage myself becoming a founder for a very long time in my career. I started off as a corporate lawyer, and I guess like the seedlings or the founder story that's behind Wealthbrite today kind of start way back then, because when I started in the profession, I, you know, had grown up in Northern Ireland. That's the accent for anyone wondering. But yeah, came to London, was working in PwC in their legal practice. And what was striking to me was that I definitely didn't sound like anyone else in the business. I was a bit different from a lot of the people in terms of the way I'd grown up and the kinds of experiences I'd had. One of the things that really stood out to me from day one in those organizations was that you were presented with quite a lot of information about your salary, about benefits in the workplace. Like, I vividly remember being handed a piece of paper in my onboarding pack that was an expression of wish who would receive your pension in the event of your untimely death. And I remember being like, oh, I'm like just starting.
You're like,
I hope I'm not going to die. Like, first of all, like, oh, this is a bit weird. I'm having to reckon with this like existential crisis of who gets some money if I die. And also just like, it was so bizarre. I was being asked to make all these financial decisions with absolutely no context or guidance. And in my relative naivety, I put my mum down because I was like, I don't know, someone in my family, I guess. So I put my mum down. And it was only like as I was starting to move through my career that it kind of really dawned on me how there were so many assumptions being made by the organizations I was working in about the type of background I had, the type of financial literacy I might have had, or like the spaces and places that might have lent itself to giving me that guidance. The reality was, at home growing up, my parents were very supportive of me, biggest hype clan ever in the background, but like they didn't know. Like, I was earning income levels that they had never had experience of, and I had tapped out of what they could offer me in terms of guidance and support. The reality was I was falling between the cracks because mum and dad didn't have that background, their social network didn't have that background. And the new social network that I had, which was this bunch of like professional services people, I didn't want to ask them because I already felt different and I just did not want to make myself look any more different than I already felt. So I just kind of made mistakes and learned along the way. Long story short, I got involved in a bunch of projects in my career, which you would now hear fashionably referred to as social mobility initiatives. They weren't called that then, but that's essentially what it boiled down to. It was about helping people from a broader set of backgrounds get to know what the Big Four looked like and feel comfortable thinking about applying to places like that, and that they weren't all like middle-aged white men who worked in those businesses. They included people like me and others. One of the things I got involved in was looking at skills gaps for the talent walking through our door. This topic of financial literacy kept coming up. Obviously, if you're working in an accountancy firm, strong numeracy and financial literacy skills are quite important. But I was looking at it through the perspective of personal financial literacy and how were we setting people up for success to operate and thrive in these businesses once they got in the door. I started playing with building programs, building like little workshops that we could do for people to teach them this stuff. And I got really energized and excited about it, and people loved them. I started talking to other people in the business, and it became really clear that this was not just for next gen. There were loads of people who were in my peer group, who were ahead of me, who were in other businesses that were just like privately would admit that I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm sort of making it up as I go. At a certain point, I decided becoming a partner in the Big Four wasn't where my future was going to be. I had this itch that I was going to regret this for the rest of my days if I don't just give it a go and see if I can't do something about this problem and build a business that tries to break this cycle of poor financial literacy in the workplace. And that is how I ended up here. And here we are, 3.5 years in, and still here, still going, still building. And that's what we do now. So we work with legal firms predominantly, helping them sort of plug the financial literacy gap with their early talent to help power them up and protect the profession.
Yeah, I mean, it's such important work, but not work that people would think of all the time. As you said, there is that bias of just assuming people know what they're doing because they come from a certain background, so they expect other people to come from those backgrounds as well. The example that comes to my head a lot is not lawyers, but footballers, actually.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like sports people. So like you said, if you come from maybe a very working class background and all of a sudden you've got all of this money and then they go broke because they don't know how to manage, there's a lifestyle creep. So is that something you see as well? And maybe not like football
All the time. No, example is the analogy that I use a lot with some of the legal teams that I work with. Because what's really interesting is I mean, you see this in tech as well. And I've done some work in the tech space, in the banking space, and legal as well. And you're exactly right. All businesses, the majority of businesses in the UK have really actually put quite a great deal of effort over the last number of years to really broaden out the range of people that they're attracting into their organizations, right? And I think the days are long gone where you had to go to a certain university to get a certain job, right? And that's great. But one of the things I think that businesses haven't caught up to is the reality. If you're widening the diversity of the talent pool that's walking in your doors, you really have to recognize the diversity of lived experiences that come with it. It's striking to me the number of times I've said this and I watch the face of the person on the other side of the camera to me when I say to them, the single greatest differentiator between people that have grown up in privilege and those that haven't is their lived experience with money. So you cannot assume that they will necessarily have all the same skills and confidence and knowledge when it comes to managing their money, and not just managing money, but how to build wealth when they're introduced to a high income environment. And that is absolutely like the truth, whether you're an engineer earning megabucks for some big tech company or a junior lawyer who happens to work for one of the latest big law firms that is just shucking money at you, or if you're a young footballer in that kind of circumstance, right? And it's funny, just to come back to that example, I've started talking to young lawyers. The pay scales in law, particularly in London, are a little bit crazy. You can be earning in the top 4% of income earners in the UK pretty much in your second year of practice, which is a lot of money. I've started to tell them, you need to start to think about your career like a professional sports player. Because chances are you may not want to be here in, you got to go in with your eyes wide open. You don't get paid this money for nothing, right? Yeah. You're going to have to give a lot of yourself to get that kind of money. And so you might burn out. You might just not love it anymore. You might just want to get a change of pace and go somewhere else. And so I think if you start to think of time in this high paid role more like a sports player, perhaps you'd act differently with your money, right? You might or might not, but you might at least reflect on the fact that how do you maximize the value of this incredibly high level of earning that you're getting, so that if you are forced out or choose to go out, do you feel like you've really got something to show for that time at that level? Yeah, it's a funny one. But all those hallmarks you described, like lifestyle inflation, spending money on crazy shit because you can. You see all of those things.
And there are so many knock-on effects as well, because all of a sudden you've got this lifestyle inflation and then it just kind of spirals out of control, which stresses you out and then ultimately has an impact on your work, right? Because you're so stressed out about all of this money that you're having trouble managing. Are there any signs that you've seen in the work that you do of when someone who is experiencing financial stress because they don't know how to manage their money?
Absolutely. So I think this is really interesting because a lot of people aren't necessarily connecting the dots in business between the signs and what's actually underlying the signs that they're seeing. So one of the classic examples is that we hear from, it's quite fashionable at the moment for some spaces to complain about Gen Z and their expectations aren't where they need to be. They're maybe not showing up the way businesses want them to. Some of the conversations I've been having with early talent teams, particularly those dealing with apprentices, the legal sector is relatively new to its experience of running apprenticeship programs. You've got somebody straight out of school, maybe you're as young as 18, legal apprentices are not on megabucks. They are probably one of the lower paid roles within the legal sector. But oftentimes, and you know, of course, the challenge there is, at least in my mind, is the apprenticeship model was specifically designed to bring in a more diverse range of talent. So all of a sudden we have this coalescence of folks that have grown up in a really wide array of backgrounds who are not earning as much, but they are earning decent money, let's be fair, you know, earning while you're learning in an apprenticeship program, earning okay money, but not as much as others in the same organization as them, who may have had to relocate. And of course, all the big firms are in London. So they may have had to relocate to London. They might be privately renting for the first time. They very often don't have the bank of mum and dad to rely on to supplement anything they're getting from work. And so what we often see is that creates a level, you know, you might be familiar with the concept of food noise. And people talk about food noise. It's like this idea that people who maybe struggle with just a lot of feeling like a lot of pressure around their weight, or maybe they're dealing with some challenges with how they're eating and their diet and all the rest of it. People talk about food noise and being obsessed with food. I've started using the phrase money noise because a lot of young people are dealing with a lot of money noise that sits on top of a very stressful job environment already. And that money noise is basically like that feeling, you know, when you have in your mind that like something's really weighing on you. And it's really hard to get rid of that nagging feeling of pressure, stress, or doubt in your mind about whether or not you fit in, whether or not you're going to make it. Can you even make ends meet this month? You know, and you're watching people around you who may be earning double your money or more, adds to that pressure. How that can often show up is just things like underperformance. It can show up as emotional outbursts. It can show up in absence from the workplace. If you're like literally feeling like so stressed and overwhelmed, you need to take time out. But it can also show up in a lot more risky ways. Sometimes people end up getting in financial difficulty. We've got stories from the sector of folks who have been tempted to do things that are unethical or risk-taking behaviors, which of course we don't want in the profession. But, you know, people who are desperate to hit their billing targets or their targets, their KPIs, because they're desperate for their bonus, right?
Yeah.
And we've heard lots of stories about people who might just be tempted to fudge the numbers a wee bit because they're overextended on a credit card and taking action so that they're out of desperation, out of financial desperation, because they so desperately need that money to come in. And so I think there's a whole range of ways in which financial stress can compound in people's lives and show up, from the mental health side to the performance side to much more damaging risk behavior. So yeah, it's a whole category of things, but I think the biggest issue for me, if I look at the way businesses are dealing with it right now, is that people often work in silos in businesses. Different teams see these things happening, and very often they're not talking to each other and not capturing the data to spot the patterns. That's one of the big things we're doing with businesses now. We're helping them turn anecdote and stories and gut instinct about what's going on for their people into concrete data that they can then make an informed decision about how do they mitigate that risk and how do they help manage people going through these circumstances. So yeah, that's the big thing at the minute.
Okay, so not a small job then.
But it's actually not that complicated. We know what the problem is, and the intervention is like pretty, you know, I don't want to do down my business in any way and say it's not valuable. It is incredibly valuable and lifelong skills we're creating here. It's about giving people access to relatable, relevant education, not just slapping some pensions language on a portal and hoping that does the job. You know, that's not where it's at. We need to be much more like interventionist, much more curated in the way we approach this, because people need to hear it in a way that speaks to where they're at in 2025. We don't want examples that assume a level of income that's not relatable to me. We don't want an example of like, how am I going to plan for a pension, assuming I've got like all these big dreams, you know, that just probably not really relevant to a modern day audience. Or even things like much smaller, like stop telling people they need to save 3 to 6 months of emergency savings, right? When 11 million households in the UK have less than £1,000 in cash savings. Like we have to reconfigure the way we've been doing financial education to make it work for people. And that actually isn't that complicated, but it requires people to think differently about why we're doing it and how we're doing it. And that's our job to help them do that.
Yeah, 100%. I can only assume that brings a lot of vulnerability to the workplace. How do you find that people approach this?
It is, you're right. There is a lot of requirement on them to be a bit more vulnerable and open. Of course, money is a big social taboo.
Yeah.
So I think like the way we tackle that is it's all about sharing stories that bring data to life. We're very deliberate when we work with businesses to identify champions in the business who are kind of like already passionate about the subject and passionate about what they do and why they do it. And it's a bit like borrowing from the model that has been done really well around mental health, getting people in the business to talk more openly and honestly about their own experiences. That's a pattern you can use in the financial space. Getting senior leaders to answer the question, what's a money lesson I wish I'd learned earlier, is often eye-opening for people. And it helps break down assumptions within the employee or staff base about like who their leaders are. Because I think there's more leaders that have their own personal journey of coming from wherever they came from or the challenges they've had to face and overcome. It's a great opportunity to help leaders lead with more authenticity by getting them comfortable to share their own story as well.
Yeah, amazing. What have been some of your career highlights or outcomes that you've had with your clients as you've been working with them?
Yeah, the storytelling is a big one for me. We're building a campaign called Keep the Change, which is all about having conversations with people in the legal sector about their own personal journeys. When you start to hear people talk, it's so powerful because it has such a powerful ripple effect. I can't tell you the number of people that have privately DM'd me to be like, oh, hey, I saw you speak about this, or I saw your article about this. Oh, this is my experience. I've been going through these challenges. That problem really spoke to me. And what's sad about that at the moment is that people still feel so afraid to talk openly about this subject. But I think what's a real highlight for me is that things are changing.
Yeah.
And I think being able to be sort of leading that change it brings me a lot of joy. And I love it when I see other people coming behind us and being like, yeah, we want to do this too. And we're going to share our own stories and run a mini campaign in our business. Just getting folks across the sector I have a wonderful clip from the legal sector's mental health charity. We're really good friends now. She was really open about it. I said on camera, like, oh, when Carla came to talk to me about this, like 3.5 years ago, I'm the CEO of the mental health charity and no one else had come to talk to me about the link between money and mental health. 3.5 years on, we are now engaged with the Law Society, senior leaders of the Legal Services Board, across all the major regulators, sector leaders, and they get it. Now the question is not so much awareness, now it's action. And that's huge, right? Just in terms of the success the business has already had. For me, that's really what it's all about. Yes, of course, I'm building a business that's global, scalable, founder buzzwords, but actually on a personal level, this is also about leaving a legacy where we've like transformed the sector for good for next generation. And I talk about our mission at Wealthbrite being about building a generation of financially savvy lawyers. And that's really what it's about. It's about being able to look back and go, we've used financial education as a pattern disruptor for people that didn't grow up in privilege and made it accessible for them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And because it's such important work that a lot of people could benefit from.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you would ever want to branch out into other kind of high pressure, high income environments like accounting or engineering? Or do you think lawyers are a special bunch?
Well, it's interesting. I think whenever we started, of course, we were like, oh my goodness, this is something anybody could want, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's actually a real danger. If I was going back to try and avoid something that I did at the start of my career, it was being overly distracted by the like, you can be tempted to be like, what's the TAM on this? It's like, oh, it's everyone, it's global, it's massive, yeah. Run. And actually what you realize is like, no, I really genuinely believe that the reason we've been successful to get to the point where we are today is because we had to pivot at the back end of last year and really double down on our niche. And actually we really have a genuinely unique selling point in the legal sector, just because in part, like, we understand that sector inside out.
Yeah.
We're the only like truly independent financial education business. By independent, I mean we're not regulated, so we're not trying to sell something through the back door. It's sector specific, it's really targeted for early talent. And we've really like kind of lent into really getting to grips with what is it about the business of law that makes all of this stuff that everybody across the UK is dealing with even worse or aggravated or amplified in some way. And we've really locked into some of the things that are like, that there are challenges that are unique to law that make all of this worse or difficult. And so that's the problem that we're addressing, and those are the challenges we're trying to solve. So whilst my natural instinct is I don't want to suggest for a moment that of course we couldn't be bigger and bolder and better. Actually, I think sometimes as a founder, knowing where you belong and where you can have maximum impact is where you can have real success. I've genuinely seen that come out in the last year as we took the decision to go back to that niche and really lock into that.
I totally get that. I can hear the passion in your voice. It sounds like this sector is something that definitely powers you. To run a business, you have to be inspired about it and excited about it as well. If this is what is firing you up, then yeah, why not double down? Keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't harm the fact that I used to be a lawyer. So it's being able to say I used to be one, I understand your world, goes a long way, and longer than you might think when you're doing business with what is a otherwise pretty stuffy, traditional, slow-moving sector.
And so law, definitely, but how did you transition into running a business? Was there anything that you felt you needed to upskill on and learn along the way?
To be honest, I think it's just funny. I actually joined a panel to talk about this subject last week.
Cool.
I was basically saying how one of the big things was about the sales skills. I've worked with a sales coach since the beginning of the year. I took myself on a founder sales training program at the back end of last year, in part because, so I guess like you have to remember like where I didn't come from startup land, right? So I was in professional services all the way through my career. And so those types of businesses, I guess I'd describe them as destination businesses. So people already know the problem you solve. They already know you have the great expertise, and they've come to you with the problem knowing that you're the solution. And so in that kind of environment, what you're really selling in that moment in time is you as a trusted advisor. You're not really selling anything else. The contrast now is like in my business today, we are still in an environment where very oftentimes we have to educate people on the problem. Then you have to educate them on the solution. Then you're like, why us against everyone else? That sales process is radically different to what I was used to in my old shops. So I think, I was chatting with some friends last year and I was like, don't you think it's weird that in any other job there's training programs offered, some form of continuing professional development, but for founders it's just make it up as you go along.
And
so yeah.
And what are some interesting sales lesson tips that you've learned along the way where you're like, oh, this worked?
I think if people talk about what's the thing that moves the needle, it's consistency. Honestly, having someone you can be accountable to is really powerful for me, my personality type particularly. For me, working with the sales coach has been really helpful because it's given me a framework that's meant every single week I show up, I'm eating my veg, doing the grunt work, hard work. To build a pipeline. It's hard work to build really genuinely deep relationships with people that you may not convert for a very long time. But that's not why you're in there. You're in there because you want to get to know them, because they might be champions for you in other spaces. All these things that you have to do to get to a situation where you've got that top of the funnel be like, maybe only 30% of those convert into a first meeting. And that first meeting might only convert at a rate of 50% or less, depending on your business model. The effort level that has to go in to get to something that becomes a truly healthy pipeline that is going to sustain you and the rest of the business is a lot. And I think that sometimes it's tempting to chase the whale, like those whale clients that you're like, you just pin all your hopes on. If you can get that one deal away, that's you sold for the year. And my personal experience is that I kind of work on a basis of like, well, if that's plan A, work on that, but you should have plan B and C and D that
Yes.
are all these much smaller, high volume transaction deals that are going to keep this business moving if plan A doesn't come off, right? And I think honestly, that's the big thing for me. I think I have so much structure around how I spend my time now, which is just doing the small jobs behind the scenes that absolutely nobody sees, is getting zero visibility or credibility on LinkedIn, that nobody's ever going to thank me for, and it is sometimes hard as a founder to just show up day to day, knowing that you're going to put some hard yards in. Unlike working in any other organization, nobody's patting you on the back at the end of the day and going like, great job, Carla. You have to sustain yourself in those moments. And that is tough. But that's why for me, having a coach or an accountability partner gives you a space where you can like, at least like occasionally I'll tap my coach and be like, eating my veg today. And he'll give me a thumbs up. And I'm like, yeah, I did it.
I love that. So for you, what have you found the most sustainable business model to be? Like, what kind of packages and streams of income do you offer within Wealth?
Oh, well, in Wealthbrite, like, I mean, we're B2B, so we only have one model, really. In broad terms, we get paid by law firms to support them with a range of different things in their businesses, like diagnostic tools to help them assess, turn those anecdotes into data points. That then builds a roadmap that then can be translated into like different programs of learning across the different spaces that we support them with. But in headline terms, that's just like the law firm paying us to do that work. So that's like a single source of income. I think there's the B2C stuff, which we've started to toy with, where we have an online program that any lawyer across the UK can take themselves on if they want to invest in their own learning journey. That's something that we've only started building up. My main reflection is I did not go into business to start a B2C business because I think it's a completely different ball game.
Yeah.
And again, it's all about eyeballs. It's like time on socials. It's time on, loads of different platforms. And to be totally honest, that was never my jam when I got into business. I'm not particularly a fan of social media. I have spaces where I choose to show up, predominantly LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, mostly as a voyeur. I don't really want to put myself, me and my whole self out on every major platform. You give so much of yourself as a founder to business and to spaces where you have to show up. I think it's important to protect some of who you are for just yourself and your friends and your family. And so for me, that's a deliberate choice. I make no bones about the fact that that will have an impact on how, if we continue with this B2C plan, how fast or how quickly it grows. But there's ways around that. Like it's about maybe working with other partners to use them as our visibility framework or create content that can be repeated across different platforms that maybe then puts less pressure on me. But yeah, that's in terms of the income streams in my business, that's the main thing. I, as an individual, do have some other sources of income. I'm very open about this as well. I'm 41. By the time I'm 50, I would love to have a broader set of portfolio opportunities where I'm involved in different businesses in lots of different capacities. I used to be part of a network called Chief, Women's Network. In fact, I think Abadesi and I met through Chief.
Okay.
I know she's been on your podcast before.
Yeah.
We used to talk a lot at Chief about more women on boards and those types of advisor roles. I remember something that some of the women there said, that doesn't happen overnight. You've got to build up a bit of a muscle and a bit of experience. Yeah. And so I have this goal in my mind, like, okay, by the time I'm 50, I've got a decade to play with. What are the steps? What are the small steps I'm going to take now that are going to help me get to a space where in the next 10 years, I can say, oh yeah, I sit across a number of different businesses. I play these different advisor roles. I have all these different things that not all of them may be income generative, but some of them will be. Just recently, I've taken on a couple of advisor roles where some of those are paid roles. And that's me starting to build up some experience that hopefully over the time will open doors and open future spaces for me alongside Wealthbrite.
Yeah, I love that. And it's never a bad idea to diversify your income or like what you do, because the world is a crazy place, as we have found out over the past few years. Thank you for sharing. It's such a niche business. Like, I love a niche business.
Yeah.
And I don't think you thought as a kid that you wanted to be doing this when you were older, but what did you want to be as a kid?
Oh gosh, this is like super embarrassing to admit. I used to really want to be Prime Minister.
Oh, okay.
I have always dreamt big. I was an odd child. I've always loved politics. I've always been fascinated in, I guess, some of this is like the unhealthy diet that millennials were brought up on, right? You can do anything. You can have it all. Dream big. I remember my mom and dad asked me, and I was like, yeah, I think I'd like to be Prime Minister. Why not?
Why not?
And they need to have more women in there. So yes, the irony is I did have a sliding doors moment in my early career where I had applied for an internship at the UN, which I thought would be my big unlock into that kind of development, politics, international stuff. But the sad reality was that I got accepted, but I had to go on an unpaid internship in Rome. I had a long conversation with my parents and they were like, I'm sorry, but we just can't afford to this just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I remember being really disappointed, but also like, okay, so I guess that's not going to happen then. It frustrates me because a lot of those internships still exist.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe I wouldn't have pursued that career. I made deliberate career choices after that experience, which, I mean, totally bluntly, why did I choose to go into law? Yes, in part because I was intellectually stimulated by it, but also because I knew it would pay well.
Yeah.
For me, the rationale was I needed to get to a stage where I was financially secure in my life. I needed to pursue a workplace environment which would give me access to income. We'd come full circle to the start of my career and where I am now with Wealthbrite, because actually, yes, I was offered that opportunity to, earn a decent living in law, but nobody was giving me any guidance about how to maximize that opportunity. I was definitely one of those early talent people who was living beyond my means, living to keep up with others around me at a moment in time where I had an enormous level of student debt. Again, I'm happy to share this, but I was living in my overdraft for at least 2.5, 3 years as a new starter in my business.
Yeah.
I had consumer debt. I had to unwind all of those things and learn how to build up. It frustrates me that there's still generations entering the workforce in those same circumstances. I started my career 15 years ago. Nothing has changed in that time. And arguably, things have got a lot worse for the current generation in terms of how far their money's going and their perceptions of where they're going to get to financially.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of nihilism in Gen Z. A lot of people look at the world and go, it's really hard and dark, so what's the point? I might as well spend my money and have good things now because I'm never going to be able to buy a house or do these things. They think there's no point in even bothering. I look at that and I go, no, we can do better for these people. They deserve for us to step in and give them the guidance that folks like me didn't have, not only so that we can preserve their aspirations, but show them a pathway to do it realistically. And that's not me trying to ignore the hard realities that not everyone's going to be able to completely change their circumstances. I'm not saying that the system isn't sometimes stacked against you, but I do still believe in the fundamental that too few people have the skills they need to set themselves up for success, particularly if you find yourself lucky enough to be in an environment like the legal profession where you will, generally speaking, be on an above average wage. It's like, okay, so how do you grab that financial opportunity in both hands and really make your money work as hard as you were working for it? Yeah. That's what it's all about for me.
Yeah. It's so interesting, the conversations and the mission that it's the other side of the coin of what we see on LinkedIn about the stagnant wages and the ridiculously low salaries that we're seeing, because it goes back to like, well, who are you hiring, who are you attracting to these roles, because only a certain number of people are going to actually be able to afford a 30k manager salary in London to afford to live on that, essentially. And so again, who are you attracting the roles
you're
hiring for?
Well, I think the reality is, I've heard this directly from people we've worked with, is that unfortunately a lot of people who are on an apprentice salary, which could be starting at £27,000 in law, it means that it's the pool of people that are applying for that, or the pool of people that can live at home.
Yeah.
And that could be people like, I know that there's folks in the boroughs of London who didn't necessarily go to private school. They could have just gone to a normal state school, like the vast majority of us. They live in London, so at least they are close enough that they can commute to these places, and that's great for them. Even for those individuals, if they're not contributing to household bills, my real aim with what we do for those people is like, okay, great. So how do we help you use this period of time to think about small things you can be learning to make life easier when you do choose to move out of the home? Planning for that time, saving up, doing fun things, but also thinking about your future in a slightly different way. Our whole mission is about giving people rules of thumb that they can live by. Like, again, it's not telling them what to do or telling them what not to do. It's more about giving people choices, showing them, okay, here's the structure you can follow. And then it's about giving them the support they can use to make a few more informed decisions. Because again, you don't know what you don't know, and that's where it boils down to. So we got to start by giving people the information.
Yep, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
Hope you're enjoying the show. We'd love to hear what you're thinking. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. Even better, if you're loving the show, take 2 seconds to rate us 5 stars wherever you get your podcast. It really helps other people find us. And if you want to be a guest, details in the show notes on how to sign up. Now, let's jump back in.
Amazing. So now we're going to move on to more of the lightweight part of the show, where we're going to talk about things that make your life easier. And the first question I always like to start off with is, do you have a walk-up song or a song that gets you like hyped up?
We do. Beyonce's Formation.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, solid choice.
It really is. I'm here for all of it. Like, yeah, it's one of those ones which it never fails to just get me going when I need to. So yeah, that's my choice.
Love going straight on the Spotify playlist.
Yes.
And then, do you have any personal policies that keep you sane and grounded? Mine, don't take calls before 10 a.m. if I can really avoid it.
Fair enough. So that's an interesting one. What I wrote down when I was thinking about this question was more just like, if it feels right, it usually is. Because I think as a founder, like sometimes it could be tempting to take in a lot of advice and guidance from other people, and sometimes you'll get conflicting viewpoints or viewpoints with a vested interest. Sometimes it's important to just listen to your gut. No one knows your business better than you do, so that's a policy of mine.
Go with your gut. And then, are you someone who has style, uniform, or like brands that you repeatedly go back to?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not very adventurous. The funny thing is, I used to be quite adventurous with my style and my wardrobe, but I feel like that also coincides with the period of my life where I was spending more money than I actually had. These days, I tend to opt for, I wouldn't describe myself as having a capsule wardrobe. But I do tend to go for stuff that's quite block colour, lasting pieces that I can just churn out. You've probably seen me in my same 5 outfits I wear on repeat, but they're great value, so that was to make it work. But no, I'm someone who mixes up my brand. So I'll do some stuff where I'll have something like Cézanne, or, I might go to, I don't know. I don't have like brands that I absolutely go to. But I'll mix it up between like some stuff that's maybe like more expensive with other stuff that's less, kind of make it work.
Yeah, I hear that. I've struggled to shop recently. I think I'm just overwhelmed by the thought of getting new clothes. Sometimes I'm like, I have enough clothes. They're all fine.
Yeah. No, I completely know what you mean. I do like to buy clothes, but I hear you. And I'm also going through a wider piece, I think, just even like small things around sustainability. I hate throwing things out if I know they're going to go to landfill. So I have this real gut reaction when I'm like, oh, I don't want to just like dump this because it's just going to go to landfill and that's really bad. So can't I make it work for a little bit longer? Yeah, I probably can.
Love that. And then beauty-wise, do you have any like hero beauty products that you use on the daily? Could be hair, skin, makeup.
Yeah, and my daily thing is I'm not somebody who has ever adopted one of these like 7-step skincare regimes. I'm pretty basic, actually. Love a simple face wash. I do use The Ordinary, some of their serums, and then Origins. I'm a big fan of their slightly tinted SPF face cream. It's always really worked for me. And that's it. I honestly think like the underrated skincare product of the century is water.
Yes.
Drinking loads of.
Are you into the electrolytes thing at the moment?
Oh no. You see, people have tried to overcomplicate this and oversell it to you. Just drink normal water. I can 100% see the difference in my skin if I've just like had a week where I've like might as well like hook myself up on IV to caffeine at the rate I drink it. But if it's been all caffeine and too little water, you can definitely see it in my skin.
Yeah, no, honestly, same.
Yeah.
And then, are there any apps or tools that you love for finance as well, not just productivity stuff?
Yeah, I mean, again, so it's funny because I think maybe this is again my age or something, but like I really struggle with app fatigue. I will always say this to my team, like, not another piece of tech. If we can do it without it, let's do it without it. Because the more stuff we add, the more complex the system becomes. I'm a big believer in keeping it as simple as possible. Tools and things that I use. One of the best tips I got from my brother recently was if you're feeling overwhelmed by distraction and you want to give your brain a bit of chill time, use the grayscaling options on your phone or Mac. It reduces it's instant.
Interesting.
You know how our brains get pulled into an app towards the little symbol? Oh, I'll just check in on Slack. Oh, I'll just check on WhatsApp. Oh, I'll just check in on Instagram or whatever it happens to be, right? Grayscale your phone, you will not want to do that. It just all goes instantly.
Interesting.
And so I use that for focus time. And you just said about how your policy is not taking calls. I'm actually even stricter than that. Morning is my productivity time. So I don't take calls before 1. So my diary, I have calls available to take between 1 to 5 every day. My morning, 8 till 10, is start the day slowly. And then 10 till 1 is get shit done. It's about finding a structure and a rhythm that works for you, I think. So yeah, I'm a big fan of using the stuff that we already have, whether that's your diary, organization, if it's the alarm clock. I'm a big fan of things like, hey, I need to really get on with planning some content that's going to go out on my LinkedIn, and it'll just go on repeat in the back of my brain. Now what I do is I just put an alarm on for 30 minutes time. I'll stick my headphones on, stick on some music, and just like jot out all the ideas. It's amazing how much you get through in 30 minutes. Turn the alarm off, done. There's your outline. Dump it into whatever tool you're using to help you create content, and off you go. And, for me, stuff like that is way more impactful than having so my brain, it doesn't work very well, like having, like a Miro board or something with millions of stickies. That's a sure way to cause absolute chaos in my brain. Yeah. I'm just like, get it down on paper and then take the paper and convert it into content. There we go.
Nice. Like, honestly, it's whatever works for your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any financial tools that you would love to shout out or recommend to people to give a go?
I've been hearing loads of people tell us that they love the Emma app for helping them with identifying subscriptions that they may not realize they're paying for. So that's a big one. I love the Martin Lewis demotivator tool. He's got this fun thing that you can do on his website where you're like, oh, hey, I now want to save this much money. Here's some stuff that I'm tempted to buy or I do buy on the regular. And it'll basically calculate how much you're spending across the year on that thing. It's meant to give you an eye opener oh shit, maybe I could redivert some of this stuff over here. So I like the demotivator tool. Otherwise, I actually just think listening to podcasts or reading books, it's a great place to start if you want to start upskilling yourself on financial education. So people, if they haven't read The Psychology of Money, I would really recommend that as a place to start. Because reality is we don't live in a world that's short on information. The thing that stops people getting to where they want to with stuff on money can be down to personal behaviors, their habits, their mindsets, their attitudes. And The Psychology of Money is a great book for helping you reflect on how you relate to money. Reframing that is a powerful unlock to then being able to take action and put in place systems that are going to help you set up for success. So that's a big one.
Okay, thank you. Just got an inside scoop. Right? And do you recommend any books or podcasts for building a business?
I am a big fan of Pivot. I don't know if people know this one. It's a podcast. It's an American podcast. Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. And so why I love that is just because it's actually more about what's going on in the market, what's going on in business, big tech deals, the inside scoop, the skinny on what's going on. And they make a lot of predictions about business as well, which I really enjoy. And also just they're kind of funny people. They've always got great stories to tell. So that's a good one I like. And then building a business, I've been recommended loads of business books along the way by other people. I kind of flip-flop on whether or not I like them. The one I did find valuable at the beginning of building the business was the mum test. This is a great book for thinking about the way in which you approach like sales, but also questions about your products. So the idea here is doing less talking and asking open questions of people in your network, in your sphere of influence. So if that's investors, if it's customers, if it's like, advisors, it's kind of thinking about drilling down to the essence of what you're trying to achieve with those questions. The mom test is the idea of if you explained your business to your mom, would she understand you?
Oh, there we go.
And a lot of founders have a tendency to overcomplicate the way they ask questions, and that ends up being a leading question because they're looking for validation. Whereas actually what you should be doing is really stepping back, explaining it as it is, and then throwing out that open question and then listening to the response and building off that. That's one I would recommend.
Oh, hey again. Did you know there are roughly 100,000 London business babes out there? And we're on a mission to reach as many as possible. Enjoying what you hear? To support the hours of work that goes into making this special, you can either A, consider supporting directly as a paid monthly Substack subscriber to also unlock future exclusive content for less than a coffee and a croissant. B, any brands listening? We'd love to explore ways for you to be part of the journey. C, at the very least, on your next co-working date, tell a fellow London business babe about us. Details in the show notes. Now let's jump back in.
And so now we're going to move on to your London recommendations, as you are a London business babe. I mean, you've been here longer than I've been here. But which part of London are you from for people listening? You don't have to say the exact place if you don't want to.
Oh, well, actually, I'm afraid I'm a fake Londoner because I moved slightly out of London, technically Hertfordshire now, but I used to be a Hackney gal, so can I still claim Hackney?
Yeah. Do you have anything on your London bucket list at the moment?
I was thinking about this earlier, and I love going into buildings in London and seeing different things, and the one I haven't done yet is the BT Tower, so that's definitely on my bucket list.
You know what?
I've never been up there.
I didn't even know you could go up there, but
yeah, you can. I guess it's a really iconic building in London, and I feel like I've not done it. I also have never been up to the top of St Paul's Cathedral, and I feel like I need to do that at some point.
You go back to my own personal bucket list. Yeah, just because you walk past it, you just kind of take it for granted, don't you? But...
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. Do you have any favourite food spots in London?
So many, and I was trying to think about like which ones I would like shout out here. I do ones that I think are like don't get as much airtime in certain places. It's just a really great Vietnamese. There used to be some really amazing ones on the Kingsland Road, and then one on the Hackney Road that I love. So any of those around that Shoreditch Hackney area for the Vietnamese, I love them. They're not even that fancy, but the food is unbelievable. I really enjoy the vibe when you're like, this is genuinely what should be described as authentic cuisine, as opposed to just saying that with polished Instagram profiles. The food is nice, don't get me wrong, but some of those Vietnamese restaurants in the Shoreditch Hackney area, gotta go. They're excellent.
Okay, I'm gonna keep my eye out the next time I'm in that area.
There's one called Green Papaya.
Oh, I've seen
on Mare Street in Hackney. Love it. So good.
Good to know. And how about cafes, coffee shops? Are you in that scene much?
Yes and no. There's actually one around the corner from the founders community. It's like an ethical Colombian coffee shop, which I discovered recently. It's kind of tucked behind where we are in Southwark Street. And again, like obviously London Bridge, like there's so many places around there, but this one is just like hidden away, little hidden gem. And I'm blanking on its name, but maybe I can send it afterwards and you can put it in the show notes.
Do let me know. And speaking of founders communities, are there any networking groups or founders communities that you want to shout out that people should know about?
I'm a member of Opus. Opus aimed at early stage founders. We have our own space now, a little Opus house down in Southwark Street in London Bridge. It's a really cool group. I've met a lot of people. I was at the right stage of wanting to become closer to others who are at a similar stage in their founder journey. So yeah, that's the main reason I joined, and yeah, I like it.
Yeah, we've had Arta a while back shouted them out as well.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry if it's a lot to take in. All of the amazing tools, spots and recommendations mentioned by a guest can be found in the Coffee and Oysters guide. Details in the show notes.
Thank you for giving us a little London guide, all of those are going to be updated into your own personal guide in the Coffee and Oysters landing page.
Perfect.
Have a little Carla profile.
Nice.
So now, to wrap up the show, is there a recent win that you'd like to celebrate for yourself and also someone else that you would love to celebrate?
For myself, that's a great question. I was actually going to do one for my good friend Netta Zaiban, who's also another Opus founder. She is the founder of a business called Keshti. She also has a newsletter called Minority Misfits. It's about sharing the journey of building and scaling a business from the perspective of people who don't come from loads of money or the classic tech space, just real people dealing with real issues and what it's actually like to build a business in this space. And she is about to come up to her second birthday with Kish, which is awesome. So I just wanted to shout her out because it's really hard to build a business and it's really hard to sustain your business, and especially when not enough is talked about in terms of folks who are doing it with someone like, you hear a lot of these businesses are started in someone's garage. I'm not starting it in my mum and dad's garage. I'm using my own cold hard cash that I've put in this business, and it's my skin in the game. There's not a fallback solution here. I think there's sometimes not enough talked about in terms of the folks who are building businesses through that lens. That's what Netta is talking about in Minority Misfits and through her own work at Keshti. In that theme, my shout out would be that Wealthbrite's going to turn 4 this year, which is awesome. The percentage of businesses that fail in those early years is pretty high, right? It's important to celebrate those milestones when you're building a business because no one else is going to celebrate it for you. So you really need to own that for yourself. And again, I really have started being much better about this. When I got this recent advisor role, or if I've had a really great day at the office where I just had a series of really awesome opportunities convert, or just really great first conversations with somebody who locked in and got it, I will say to my partner, let's celebrate tonight. We need to take these wins because there will be a lot of other days where you're just question your sanity it will be hard days, right? So I just think you have to build it into your practice to take that moment to go, yeah, I had a great day today. Yes, I love this. This is awesome. And for me, that's a glass of wine.
Yeah, honestly, I had one of those moments the other day after doing such a dry period, and then finally a big project came through. I'm like, okay, I can do this. Yes. Work with me.
100%.
Amazing. Is there anything that you would like to plug, and is there anything that you need help with?
I think the main thing I was going to say is if anyone is listening and they are either in the legal sector or know someone in the legal sector, we are currently doing our big 3rd year's sector research. This is an open call, totally anonymous survey. Basically, we ask lawyers to tell us how they're feeling and dealing with money. And that data has been the bedrock of everything we build at Wealthbrite. It's really the thing that's allowed us to speak with such authority about what's going on for people in law. It's because we have the absolute privilege of having lawyers across the UK be honest with us about this stuff. So that survey is launching live this week, Wednesday, 24th of September. This may go out after that, in which case, please check it out online. You can find it through my LinkedIn or on wealthbrite.co.uk. The survey will be embedded there. It takes 5 minutes to complete, and honestly, it's an absolute game changer for persuading others, particularly leaders in the sector, about just how important it is to deliver this quality information and education to people.
Amazing.
So that's my ask.
Amazing. And is there anything you need help with, or is that it?
That's the thing I need help with.
That's awesome.
Get the word out.
Well, yeah, this will probably come out on the 9th of October, so I'll make sure to link your website.
Wonderful.
So people can find it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find you? Is that LinkedIn, your preferred?
LinkedIn.
Yep.
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. So it's just Carla Hoppe. That's the end of my LinkedIn profile. So super easy. I'd love to connect with folks who might have listened to this. Maybe they have questions. I often get people following up saying, oh, Yeah, what was that book or what was that recommendation you made? Very happy to continue sharing all the stuff we talked about today. I talk about it all the time online. So if you'd like the conversation, then yeah, follow along.
Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening. Get in touch at coffeeandoysters@gmail.com. Stay connected at Coffee and Oysters Pod on TikTok and Instagram. And never miss out by subscribing to Substack. Details in the show notes. And most importantly, keep those 5-star ratings coming and see you next time.